Well, salvete. Welcome to another exciting lesson of Catholic Latin, Church Latin, Ecclesial Latin, a free online Latin course that I'm offering to anybody who wants to be able to read the Vulgate, the Bible, in Latin in less than a year. In just about 10 months worth of lessons, you're going to have so much Latin. You're going to feel so much smarter. Let's take a look at this. Orare et laborare. Orare et laborare. This was on the side of a church in Akron, Ohio, St. Mary's. This was on the side of the church that I used to go to when I was in college. If you are a Benedictine or a Benedictine oblate, what's that? What's a Benedictine oblate? Not a Benedictine omelet. No, a Benedictine oblate. Oblate. It's somebody who practices the Benedictine charism within a lay life outside of a monastery. You might recognize, if you have experience with Benedictines, you might recognize orare et laborare. It's just a variation on their own motto. And hopefully, if you remember last week's lesson, these verbs look a little familiar to you. At least those last three letters do, those ares. You know what that means? It means both of these verbs are in the infinitive form. Orare et laborare. What's the infinitive? You want me to remind you what an infinitive is? It's when you say to verb. To go boldly where no one has gone before. That to go, that's infinitive. So, what is orare et laborare? Well, laborare is pretty easy, isn't it? You recognize that. You can figure that one out. It means to work. And what do Benedictines do in addition to working? They pray. The Benedictine life is about orare et laborare, to pray and to work. Okay, well, let's look at our agenda for this week. We can start with a little bit of review here. Let's start by reviewing. We're going to be talking more about verbs this week. All we're doing this week is verbs. In fact, all we're doing for the next several weeks is verbs. You're going to know so much about verbs in Latin in just a few weeks. Today, after a bit of review, we're going to look at those non-perfect verbs. Let's remember how I divided the tenses last week. Let's start here, actually, before moving on to the agenda. Let's start with the review, okay? Okay. Remember last week I talked about the 6 tenses that a Latin verb can have. It'll have just one, of course, of these 6 tenses, and I divide them into the not perfect at all and the somehow perfect. The 3 not perfect at all tenses, the present, the future, the imperfect. The 3 somehow perfect tenses, I know, okay, I know in Catholic grade school they told you only God is perfect. Okay, that's fine. But in fact, actually, we have 3 perfect verb tenses, including the perfect itself, the pluperfect tense, the one that gets translated with that word had, and the future perfect. It will have happened. And remember, last week I also told you that there's 4.5 groups of verbs. You saw this slide last week. These are the 4.5 groups. We're only concerned this week with the first 2. The kind that go amo, amare, amavi, amatus. That means to love. Or habeo, habere, habui, habitus. To hold. Forget about group 3 and 4 this week. Oh, forget about group 3.5 for a while. This week, we're just talking about the first 2. And here's the agenda for this week. It's actually a little bit of an easier week. It's not a bad week if you need to go back and review some stuff from last week or even before that. Because this week, I'm just going to tell you how to handle the three non-perfect tenses, the perfect, the imperfect, and the future, and I'm only going to tell you how to handle them for those first two groups. Remember, in Latin, we call groups of verbs conjugations. So we're dealing just with the first two conjugations this week and just three quite non-perfect tenses for those two conjugations. After I do that, I'll give you some study tips. When we deal with the three non-perfect tenses, we're always going to look at the infinitive form of the verb. Remember, that's that second one in the 4 parts that you find in your dictionary. Okay, amo, amare. That's the infinitive. Amavi, amatus. Habeo, habere. Habere is the one we're interested in this week. It means to hold, to have. Everything we do with the non-perfect tenses gets done in the active voice to that infinitive form. Well, the first thing you have to do when you're learning Latin verbs, the thing you just got to do straight off the bat, no hesitation about it, you've got to memorize these endings. You chant them, just like we do everything else in Latin. You go, ost mustis enti. Ost mustis enti. Now, every so often, we're going to have to remember that M is going to be there in the first person singular. So here's what you do. You go ost mustis enti 3 times, and then on the 4th time, try to remember to go mst mustis enti. Go ahead. I mean, if there's nobody around, if you can get away with it right now, go ahead and pause this video. Go ost mustis enti. Go ahead, do it 3 times, and then give mst mustis enti a run. Go ahead, start practicing. Pause the video. Well, did you do it? Does it feel good? I bet it feels good. It feels good when I do it. So, let's talk about the present tense of the first 2 conjugations. It's so easy. It's so simple. What you do is you go to that infinitive, like amare, you drop the final re, you just chop it off, you get rid of it, and then you add the endings you just memorized. Now, the first person singular, remember, you're always going to find that in the dictionary. It won't necessarily be able to be reverse engineered the way everything else can for a verb. So, you chop off the re, you start with the second person singular, you add the st, mustis enti, and what do you know? You've probably seen this in a movie, or maybe you've even heard it in a song. Amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatus, amant. Amo, I love. Amas, you love. Amat, he, she, or it loves. Amamus, we love. Amatus, y'all love. Amant, they love. See how easy this is? This is the present tense of the first conjugation. And the second conjugation gives us absolutely no difficulties. We go video, vides, videt, videmus, videtis, vident. Okay, ost mustis enti. Vides, you see. Videtis, you all see. Vident, they see. Not hard, is it? Okay. By the way, the way the accents fall on the syllables sometimes changes a bit when you start adding endings to these verbs. I'm not really going to talk much about how that works. You're going to have to pick it up as you go, but I think you will. I think you'll find it's actually not that complicated at all. Well, now that you've got the present tense down, let's talk about the imperfect tense. Remember, this is the one I told you in the gospel, you'll see like Jesus was walking. This used to happen. This was something going on in the past. That's how the imperfect tense works. Well, here's the proper way of thinking about the imperfect tense. Here's the way you would learn the imperfect tense if you were in a high school or a college beginner's Latin course. They would tell you, start with the infinitive, drop that RE, add BA, then add the standard endings. That's how they would teach it, okay? And they would say fancy things like, BA is the sign of the imperfect in the first and second conjugation. Okay, this isn't hard. We can do this. I'm a bam, I'm a bas, I'm a bat. I'm a bamus, I'm a batus, I'm a bant. See, it's not hard. Okay, it's so easy. But you know what? I can actually make this one a little bit easier for you. Just memorize these. This is the cheater's memorization chart. And there's nothing wrong with cheating, is there? Not when you're learning a language. Sometimes a little bit of cheating can actually get you ahead when you're learning a language. We shouldn't cheat on our taxes. We shouldn't cheat in our business dealings. But can we cheat a little bit when learning Latin? Sometimes we can. I'll tell you where we can. Here's a place we can. We can just start chanting. Bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. Oh, it feels good to do it. I'm going to do it again. Bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. Go ahead, pause the video. Do it yourself. It's fun. Hey, 2 of the 3 non-perfect tenses are down. Look what's next. The future tense. Things going on in the future. Well, here's the proper way of doing it. Here's the way that your high school Latin teacher would want you to do it. He or she would say, drop the RE from the infinitive, add BI. They would say, BI is the sign of the future tense in the first and second conjugations, and then add your standard endings. Vide bo, vide bis, vide bit. Vide bimus, vide bitus, vide bunt. Vide bis. You will see. Vide bit. She will see. Vide bunt. They're going to see. Okay, see, it's not hard, nothing to worry about here. But once again, you'll probably already notice that this one has some weird exceptions up there in the first person singular. It's not a BI, it's I'm a bow. There's no BI there. There's no I in that at all. Except the I that is doing the verbing, or will be doing the verbing. Oh dear, look at this card. I screwed up the translation. I didn't change translations. I'm a bis means you will love. Sorry about that. Well, there's a cheater's way around this. You just memorize these. Bo bis bit, bemis bitus bunt. Bo bis bit, bemis bitus bunt. That's the future. That's the future of a first or second conjugation Latin verb. Well, look how much you've learned today. You have learned how to make non-perfect tenses of many, many Latin verbs today. So, with that on our plates, how do you practice? What do you do going forward? Well, I think that you should, every so often look up a verb in your dictionary and choose a tense. Just look it up. If it's in the first or second conjugation, choose the future tense or the present tense and just practice making it. And get yourself a copy of this book, 501 Latin Verbs. I use this book. Sometimes I put an index card on the verbs and I slowly scroll the index card down the page, trying to predict what the form of the next Latin verb will be. Let's go ahead and talk about some things you can start doing every day to drill Latin into you, to help yourself learn Latin. Here are 10 daily exercises to help you solidify in your mind, in your linguistic capacities, everything we've learned over these first 6 lessons. I think 10 minutes a day on these exercises is very good. especially if you're just trying to read the Vulgate with me next summer. You're not trying to produce the next critical translation of Augustine's Confessions, are you? Well, maybe you are. You've still got to start somewhere, and here's a good place to start. The first thing I like to do every day with beginners is let's review the 5 grammatical functions. And at this point in the course, don't be afraid to start memorizing their fancy names, because I'm going to start using their fancy names a little more often. Start getting used to saying the nominative subject, the genitive of, the dative to, for, indirect object also, the accusative, the direct object, the ablative, that miscellaneous one that often has by or with or from or in or something like that. Review them every day. Then review your first declension endings. I am, I am, is, us, is. Then spend a minute reviewing your second declension endings. Usi, o, I, orum, is, os, is. And just like I said with the verbs a moment ago, on your 4th repetition, you do it 3 times, do it a 4th time. On your 4th time, switch up to the neuter version. Umi, o, a, orum, isa, is. Same for the 3rd declension. Isse, me, es, ibus, es, ibus. So practice all 3 of those declensions every day. In a month or so, I'm going to give you a 4th and then a 5th declension, but they're really not as common as these first 3. Pound these first 3 into your head. Drill them into your children. Speak of them whether you're at home or abroad. Same for the 6 verb tenses. At this point in your studies, you should review the 6 verb tenses on a daily basis. The 3 not perfect at all tenses, the present, the imperfect, the future, and remember the 3 quite perfect tenses, the perfect, the pluperfect, and the future perfect. And remind yourself for a minute a day what the differences are between them. What's the difference between the pluperfect and the imperfect? Just spend a day reviewing that. Spend a minute a day, sorry. Spend a minute a day reviewing that. Review the 4 conjugations and what the difference between them is. Remember, the first conjugation is an infinitive that ends in are. The second conjugation is an infinitive ending in long ere, like habere. The third conjugation ends in short ere. The 4th conjugation ends in ire. And we're going to be talking about the 3rd and 4th conjugations next week. 7th, every day for now, spend a minute reminding yourself what the 4 parts of a verb are when you look it up in the dictionary. Remember, the first one is that I am doing something. First person, present tense, singular. The second one in a dictionary of a standard verb is the infinitive, the to verb form. The third entry for a verb in your dictionary tells you the first person singular past tense, perfect tense. The perfect tense, I ran, I ate, I drank. We haven't said a whole lot about that 4th form yet, so don't worry too much about it now. It's called the perfect passive participle. Okay, well, don't worry about what that means yet. After you've reviewed those 4 dictionary parts of a verb, hey, go ahead. Remind yourself of the present tense endings, what I've called in this lesson the standard endings. OST, mustis enti. Spend a whole minute every morning doing that, followed by a whole minute with the imperfect tense endings. Bam, bas, bat, bamus, badis, bant. And then do the same thing with your future tense endings. Bo, bis, bit, bimis, bidis, bunt. You can do these things in the shower if you want. You can do these things while you're on the bus, right? It's very easy. And this is how I recommend studying Latin every day so that you can read the Bible next summer. Here's what you should do every day. As soon as you wake up, as soon as you open your eyes, put a little note card next to your bed and say the Pater Noster in Latin. Then say the Ave Maria in Latin. Then say the Glory Be in Latin. Try to do that as soon as you open your eyes, because I believe, and maybe my science is wrong, but I believe that it's in that early minutes of the day. If you start pouring this habit, that habit of Latin, into your mind in the first moments of the day, that's when your mind is most susceptible to pick up the patterns of the language. After you've said your morning prayers, go ahead and do this 10-point exercise. Spend 10 minutes reviewing each of these 10 things. Then, maybe in the evening, as you're winding down, go into our Facebook group and look at our Latin prayers that we post each day. See what you can make of those. Or if you don't have the Facebook page, maybe look up the part of the daily psalm from the Mass or the antiphon for the psalm. See what you can make of it. Spend at least a couple minutes every evening trying to look at some new Latin, even if you can't understand all of it. Try your best, look at it, think about it, pat yourself on the back for the things you do understand. And pretty soon, maybe I understand. Maybe you feel like things are going slowly right now, but believe it or not, after a few more weeks, after we learn a few more things about verbs, you're going to start flying. You're going to start really translating a ton of things from the Mass, from the liturgy, from the Bible, even occasionally from medieval philosophers like my main man, St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay, well, I think that's what we need to go over for this week. Don't forget, I'm still underemployed for the moment. If you want to help me out, go ahead, drop $5-10 into the GoFundMe. It's a great thing that some of you have been doing. It's very nice. It's really been helping me. And I think it'll only continue to help everyone because charity helps everyone. Okay, well, that was a terrible commercial. Well, okay. Practice your verbs this week. Practice your non-perfect verbs. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now. Salvete. No, sorry, valete. Salvete is how we say hello. Valete is how we say goodbye.